Hey there. So in this video, we're going to talk about how you take a SQL Server database that you have locally running on SQL Server and migrate it to a Azure SQL database. So you could create a virtual machine in Azure and install SQL Server on it and restore a database backup. That is a possibility. But if you just want to migrate your database up and use it up there without having to have a VM and actually have the database be a managed service, which means that Azure would take care of backing it up for you, take care of making sure that it's up all the time. If you have a VM, then you have to worry about getting all that set up yourself. So anyway, we're going to show you how to do that. So to start with, you have to have a database that you want to migrate. And we're going to be using the AdventureWorks database. And I'm using SQL Server Management Studio version 18.0 against a SQL Server 2017 Express edition running on my local computer here. So if I connect, we'll see here under databases that I have an AdventureWorks database. And just really quick, we can come down here to the tables and just pick any one of these and do a select, just so you can see that there actually is data in these and that the database is actually running. So you can see that. So now what we need to do, it's actually really easy to do this, but there's a prerequisite, and that is that you need to actually have the database server set up in Azure. So we're going to go to the Azure console and log in. Now I'm using a free tier account, and I want to talk to you just really briefly about the free account. You can get free Azure services for a year, and there are some restrictions on exactly what you can do. Some things are free, some things are not. Sorry for all the pain here on logging in. Just trying to get onto Azure here. So, all right, so I'm up here, and what I wanted to talk to you about really quickly, because whenever you're dealing with cloud services like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, the one thing I strongly recommend that you do when you're trying things out, or even if you are on a paid plan where you're paying a certain amount or you're planning on spending a certain amount on cloud services, I strongly recommend that you go set up billing alerts. So I'm on this free trial subscription right now. And if I go over here to budgets, you'll notice that I've got set up here an alert. And I basically budgeted myself $5 a month, because this resets on every billing month. And I set an alert condition that says if it goes above 50% of that amount, whatever that amount is, which is $2.50, then please email the alert to this email address. And you can configure multiple alerts. So when you go create your budget, down here you can create additional alerts if you want to, and you can create additional alert receipts or recipients. So I strongly recommend that you do this. I have been burned by this with the cloud providers because I thought I had things shut down and not running, and it ran past my free period, and all of a sudden I got a bill for a couple of $100. So this has happened to me, and I'm not going to point out who it is, but I've seen this happen on both Amazon Web Services and on Azure. So it's your responsibility to keep track of how much money you're spending. When you sign up for the free account, you give them a credit card number. And if you're not careful, you will get billed. So if the money is an issue, watch that and make sure that you go through setting up your alerts. I actually normally set it up that if it goes above 1 cent that I get alerted. And the one thing you also need to be aware of, just not to soapbox on this too much, is that there are people out there that are looking for your account credentials on these cloud providers because they want to use compute resources. And if they can get your login information, they can use you already have a credit card set up there, and if they can log in as you, they can run up a huge bill very, very quickly. So be careful with your account credentials. Be careful with that's the other reason to set up a billing alert, to make sure that you know that's all set up. All right, so we are going to come in here and select create a resource, and we're going to go to databases, and we are setting up just a SQL database. Make sure you're in the right subscription, and we're going to create a new resource group for this, and I'll just call it Learning 1. And then you need to have a database name, and the database name has to be unique. So remember, this is the database server name. This is not the individual database that we're going to restore, which is going to be called AdventureWorks. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and do the Learning DB and see if that'll work. And we'll see what happens when we come down here. So let's go Learning DB server 1 001. This is where you got, it's like coming up with a name that isn't already in use, and then give it whatever you want here. I'm going to blow this away, so don't go try to hack on this stuff. Whatever you want to call that. Let's see, we'll just do this. All right, so okay, and then you pick where you want your server to run, and it doesn't really matter where it is, although you pick where you're at in the world. I'm going to pick West US. So we'll select that, and you can leave that the same. And then configuring the database. All right, so you don't want to run a big database that costs you a bunch of money. So it is your responsibility to make sure that you don't size this thing out. You can see the price right over here. Okay, so remember, I'm on the free tier, so free doesn't mean free. It means I get credits every month. Okay. And so let's just see if that's going to let me. If I bump the size, what happens? Doesn't seem to make any difference here. Let's just go back. All right. What's a DTU? You can go read about that here. And you can see the SLAs and everything on that. All right. So I don't want to run that big, just in case. So we'll just make this a little bit smaller. And let's see. We're not going to do the advanced security just yet. You can add a tag if you'd like to, if you need to tag these for some reason. And this is showing the estimated cost per month. Again, I'm on credits, so it'll just take some of my credit. Go ahead and say create. So it's out there contacting the server right now and setting up the database. It says the deployment's underway. So we will just give this a few minutes, and I'm going to pause the video while it's doing this creation. So if you look under notifications here, you can see what's going on. The deployment's in progress. You'll notice down here my free tier is a $200 credit. So when that's gone, then I have to pay. Although there is some stuff that's supposed to be permanently free, and I'm still trying to see what configuration exactly I need to have for that. I'll probably do a video on that. So you can see that I spent 5 cents back in May total. So cloud services like this are great. You have access to do a lot of great work very easily without having to set up all your own hardware. All right, so it says that it is successful. And so we need the name of this thing. So let's do this. We need to go. So let's go to the resource. All right, so what we're going to need to do, so this is the actual server name right here. And let's go try to connect to it. So from our desktop, we are going to connect. And instead of having this name, we're going to use this name. And we're going to use SQL Server Authentication. And we're going to put in our username and password. And hit connect. So it says, now there's a firewall issue here, so Azure isn't just going to let anybody onto this server. So it basically says your client IP address does not have access. So SSMS has the ability to get you signed in and open the firewall essentially. So that's what this is all about right here, as I'm just going through that process. And if you change IP addresses, then you will need to so this happens to be my client IP address, and mine will change, and so this will work for now, but in a day it might be a different IP address, and you may or may not be on a similar situation. Okay, so there's our database down here. So you would think that you could just like copy and paste. Now it created an empty database, and we're actually not going to use that database. So you would think that maybe you could just drag and drop or something like that, but it's not quite that easy. Okay, so what you do, this is how you migrate the database. So you go up to your database, your local database, you right click, you select tasks, and you go down and say deploy database to Microsoft Azure SQL. And give it the name. So here's the name right there. And yes, this is all okay. And hit next. and hit finish. And now it's going to export the database. Now this can take some time to move the data across. So you'll see the steps appear down here as it goes. Like right now it's pulling the schema out of the AdventureWorks database to create it up there. And there'll be a whole bunch of steps here that it does. So I'm going to pause the video and let it go ahead and start working through all these, and you can see it progressing along nicely. And if you get an error, you can go delete what you've got and start over. But this does work pretty good. So you can see right now it's starting to actually export the tables. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and then we'll just come back when it's working, when it's done. Or closer to being done, I should say. All right, so you can see that this is finished now. You can see all the different steps that it went through. This took about 30 minutes to do, so it's not trivial to move this. And if you had a much larger database, it could take a lot longer. But anyway, that's how you do it. It's that easy. So let's check and see. So there's our database. So remember, I'm connected over here to, this is my Azure instance. Let me collapse my local instance here. Here's the Azure databases. And if we expand the tables, I'm connecting to Azure now instead of locally. That's why it's a little bit more slow. Apologize if you can hear the rain and thunder in the background. So let's go down here, and we knew we had, I can't remember, about 19,000 people in the people table, I think. We could go check this, but I'm positive that we have all the data there. So let's run this query against that database. And sure enough, there's our 19,972 people. So that's how easy it is to get a database migrated over to Azure. And with that, you now have this database right here, this database server, up and running. Now, cost, again, this is gonna sit here and tick away and cost money. It said it was gonna be $5 a month. So you have to consider how long you want to leave things up and running up here. But that's how easy it is to get it installed. Now that we have our database in Azure, we're ready to actually start doing some software development with REST or C# desktop applications or anything like that, because we have a cloud-based database. And we'll do that in subsequent videos. So thanks for watching. Please like the video if this was useful for you, and also please provide comments and feedback. And there are lots of videos out there. I think there's the 2017 videos that I've done, some 2015 videos. There's some Azure videos. There's some AWS videos. So hopefully you find something out there that will be useful to you. And thanks again for watching.